Welcome back to Decentralounge, brought to you by GlobalStake, your truly decentralized SOC 2 Type 2 certified institutional bare metal blockchain infrastructure provider. I'm your host, Ryan Hazinski, head of protocol partnerships, along with my co-host, Wyatt Clancy, our VP of growth. Today, we're joined by Devin Baker, founder of Comma, a new paradigm crypto fund operating at the intersection of community, technology, capital, and culture. Devin comes from a traditional finance background, having started his career in investment banking at Lazard before moving into private equity at L. Catterton, where he developed a strong foundation in capital markets, investing, and business strategy. He later transitioned into an operating role as part of the founding team at Tally Health, leading operations and helping scale the company, giving him firsthand experience building inside a high-growth startup environment. Today, through Comma, Devin is focused on a different frontier, exploring how crypto is reshaping not just financial systems, but also the way communities form, capital flows, and culture evolves on the internet. Alongside the fund, he shares his thinking through long-form writing, offering perspectives on where the space is headed and why it matters. Today, we'll talk about Devin's journey from traditional finance into crypto, what led him to start Comma, and how he thinks about investing at the intersection of technology, community, and culture in this next phase of the industry. Devin, welcome to Decentralounge. Super excited to have you today. Why don't we just start off with your backstory about how you got involved in this crazy wide world of Web3?
Yeah, isn't it? Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. As you mentioned, I mean, look, I started in traditional finance and missed crypto, my first time around in 2016 or 2017. I was sitting at Lazard and I saw the headlines like everyone else when the price was running up and didn't pay too much attention until the next time came around. And then, fast forward to 2020, 2021, I'm sitting in my apartment, which doubled as my office and my bedroom and like all the above as we were during COVID times. And I just was like, all right, I got to take a look at this thing. Like I missed it the first time, it's back. What is it? And what really captured me was, I, like many of us, are a student of technology and entrepreneurship. And so while I wasn't sort of in my working years during the internet wave, I just remember like the deeper that I went into crypto, the more it just really felt like it echoed what I read that the internet wave felt like. When it was new and this massive vision on the horizon. It's a little like orthogonal. It's super different. It seems bizarre at first. It's hard to grok. It's hard to understand. But I just had this feeling. It was almost like in my chest that there was something really interesting here. And the more that I learned, what really captured me, in addition to seeing like, I need to take a look here, was the deeper I went, the more the crypto sort of like rabbit holes branched off. And it was like the more that I kept following it, I was finding that crypto was helping me ask different and better questions around like, hey, how does this world actually work? How does this financial system actually work? Like it was the first time that I had actually really thought about what money actually is. Like, what is money? It's basically like it's a shared story that we all tell. And so there were just all these nooks and crannies as I kept going. At first, maybe I wasn't convinced. But then the more that I found that I was asking questions and learning about how the world worked, and crypto presented better and different ways to think about the world and how it might work better, I was just like, this matters. This matters. I think this is massive. And so that was, as I mentioned, 2020, 2021. And then, I didn't work in it for quite some time until Comma came a handful of years later.
So my first question is, especially as a former teacher, which of the rabbit holes, when you get to that branching point and there are multiple rabbit holes for you, like which one do you felt that you went down the most and did you learn the most? Like which one do you feel illuminated your worldview in all the myriad ways that you just mentioned?
Yeah. I mean, the first one, the biggest one for me was understanding money and the financial system and kind of the history of money and the different eras that we've moved through. Sort of culminating in our current fiat world, which in crypto, it sort of gets shorthanded and it can sound a little doomer, like, oh, fiat versus hard money, like Bitcoin standard, anti-money printing. But the reality was like, I just learned how crucial money and the financial systems are as sort of, yes, a technology, which is like, we think of crypto as a technology, but ultimately money itself is a technology that helped humans do what humans do best. And so following that thread it brought me to the learning and the realization that so often these technologies, crypto included, is it gets collapsed into one thing. Okay, it's Bitcoin, digital gold, fine and good. But I think the bigger vision that really captured me and got me interested above and beyond Bitcoin, and that just continued to grow, was the idea that crypto itself at its core is actually not money technology. It's way bigger than that. And it's coordination technology. And put in that perspective, some of the most world-changing technologies themselves were actually coordination technologies at their core. And we today don't think of them that way. Like, I mean, language, the written language is a coordination technology. Money is one of those things, the highway system, the internet, all these things, we think of them today as how they manifested, decades later. But really what they did at the core was they helped humans in the world around us coordinate energy, ideas, and focus it and shape it in the direction of things that are worth building. And like that is a completely different narrative. And I actually don't think it's talked about enough. So it was this thread from first looking into how money worked, realizing at the core what money really is, and then just seeing all the ways that coordination technology, is much bigger than it sort of seems at first glance, and that crypto is one of those things.
So when you come from, the quintessential TradFi background, and then you started moving, being a fund manager in, this kind of new paradigm, as you say, industry, how do you think about it from the perspective of the background you have, but also as, now the manager of your own fund in crypto? How is it different than what you're used to, and what changes did you implement?
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely different. Look, at the end of the day, when you're investing, there are some sort of like investing principles, and there's a craft there. So that is still certainly true. But I find that, crypto is so at the frontier even still. One of the biggest things that I've realized over the last, 18 months or so since I started the fund is just how early we actually are. So bridging these two worlds is probably the most interesting, the most crucial, and at the same time, one of the most challenging parts in any number of ways, whether that's talking to investors or thinking about it as an investor myself, to even just figuring out how this new technology will, because the vision is what brought me in, but then once you're in it, and investing behind it, like I am now with Comma, you really have to start to think about, there's a vision in the future. Here we are today. And what does that gap look like? Like, what is the timing? How does it evolve? What might it look like super concretely? And so it's this ability to dance between these two worlds, it's hugely crucial to be able to think like the tech founder or venture investor who's painting this like multi-decade vision, while you're looking, at prices as they sit today and where are they going the next week and the next month. And so the ability to keep the vision strong but stay nimble is, look, it's super challenging, and that's you don't get that just staying in traditional finance, like, because things don't change all that much, at least as fast as they do in a space like crypto.
So thinking about what sets Comma apart, right? Just especially hearing that answer and your very philosophical answer, which I loved before. I mean, what are you doing differently, right? Like everybody has a fund, but maybe is there something specific to your thesis or that you're looking at in terms of verticals that you're investing in? And I guess let's dig into Comma a little bit more and what you're doing with their day-to-day.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most, persistent and valuable yet difficult to execute differentiators is time horizon. That is one of the things that continues to persist and is often discussed, but again, challenging to do. So I'll mention it, and because it is core to how we invest at Comma, which is to keep that long-term vision, a decade, 2 decades out. That said, the other interesting thing is Comma itself is a liquid fund. So, it's technically a hedge fund. We trade liquid crypto tokens as opposed to a venture investor who's seeding companies at the earliest stages or even in their growth stages where they're private, illiquid kind of deals here. And that tension, I think one of the core reasons that I started Comma as a liquid fund is because I think this tension presents such an interesting opportunity. I really believe the crypto, the technology itself is built around this token concept, and the token itself is liquid. And the fact that you can own a portfolio that looks, you can own a portfolio in crypto that looks entirely different than you'd be able to do in one place in other asset classes. So in traditional markets, you kind of have to pick a lane. You're either an early stage investor, you're a public markets investor, you're a growth stage investor, you're a private equity firm that does a leverage buyout. Like, they're all kind of different. So you have to, in order to get exposure to all of them, you need to have some strategy across a bunch of different places. But in crypto, you have this asymmetric upside potential over decades if you believe in the technology, which we're all here, we do. But you can invest in that like you could other asymmetric technologies like AI, but you can do it in a fully liquid way. And not only can you do it where your portfolio is liquid, you can actually own a portfolio that represents all these different slivers of the market, from the $10 or $20 million pre-seed or seed stage company all the way up to something like Bitcoin, which is whatever it is, $1.5 trillion asset in the same portfolio. So you can be really nimble and specific with how you construct the portfolio itself and give yourself different types of exposure, not just across the stage of the company, but different categories. But then on top of that, you can actually risk manage the whole thing, which, if you're a venture investor, you're concentrated and you're, stuck. You're stuck in those holdings. But here, not only can you stay nimble and move in and out of things, but there's a decently sophisticated and growing derivatives market that enables you to just express your view in so many different ways. So the first thing is this liquid approach to an asymmetric market. The second thing that I'll say is I really believe in the potential at the application layer of crypto, which somehow in the last year has seemed to become pretty controversial. A lot of people have given up on this big vision of crypto. And I have spent a lot of time looking at it because over the last year and two, the application layer and the projects themselves have gone through some trouble, especially when you look at price alone. But I think when you look at how technologies move in the past, we kind of have echoes of what we're experiencing now, where there are booms and busts. Sure, everyone talks about the booms and busts, but the technology itself evolves. And I like to think about the internet as a pretty good analog for crypto. Look, it's not perfect, but if you really think about it, the internet, when it first blew up on the scene, was, call it, the 1990s. And then, of course, everyone knows the dot-com boom and bust in 2000, 2001. But if you think about what that was at that time, the application layer kind of failed, and it was lots of infrastructure. But what do we think of the internet as today? We think about it as all the applications that we use that shape how we spend our time and do our work and everything. That's no longer infrastructure. That's all up here at the application layer. But when you look at the time horizon of these things, they didn't really work or become as significant as they are until starting in like the 2010s. So easy to forget, right? Like, we had this 20-year period where the technology blows up on the scene. There's a huge craze. Everyone's experimenting, which is all a good thing, until it becomes as powerful and as significant as it is today. I think technologies move faster over time. I mean, the fact that crypto is built on the internet means, by definition, there's a lot of work that we don't have to do yet to replicate it. So, I don't know if it'll take 20 years, but, Ethereum started in 2016, 2017, and here we are 9 years later. So in addition to being, a liquid expression of a belief in crypto, it's also an expression in the belief that on the journey to $100 trillion of market cap over the next decade or two in crypto. It's a belief, and we invest behind this belief that a disproportionate amount of that value will actually be created at the application layer, some of which we know and see today, but some of which is very much still being built and will be built. Because if you were to ask someone, what are all the ways that the internet's going to matter in 2003? No one could have predicted, and no one did predict at that time. Your Ubers, your Netflixes, fill in the blank, massive, important company today. Technology is like that. It's hard to see around corners, but if you stay on it, it's a belief that you can find those opportunities that are really going to shape crypto and crypto and the world and make it look different than it looks today.
So following now onto the future, everything you want to happen happens the next 5 years. Would you, branch into a second vertical that maybe you've already worked in before and start another fund that maybe is in venture, maybe more of growth stage investing, and more illiquid? Or do you think you would just grow your liquid fund? What's the overarching vision for yourself and Comma?
Yeah, we'll see. The other thing that we have to keep in mind is that I think eventually all assets will be liquid and traded on the blockchain. So I actually think there's a world where even if, the vision, the product of Comma Partners as it exists today as a liquid fund investing behind crypto and broader frontier technologies is interesting to me, whatever that looks like in the future, because I think we're at a point where we still kind of refer to crypto as its own space, but any successful technology diffuses and then you stop thinking of it that way. Because again, would people call Netflix an internet company today? Like, no, it's not. It's a media company or whatever you want to call it. So first of all, I think we're going to get this blending of categories where crypto kind of spills out into other things. The first one probably being finance. And then we're going to come into a world where the rest of the world will be a crypto product itself because it'll be traded on chain. So, look, one of the reasons that Comma came to be is because I really believe in the frontier technologies, that they matter and that they actually shape and further expand what it is to be human. So it's not just this idea that technology, because you often get two sides of the barbell. You get people that are like, let's merge with the machines. And then you get people that say like, no, I don't want any kind of tech and I want to go off the grid. I started Comma because I believe that there's a middle way. There's a middle way where you believe actually technology is some of the most human things we do. And yet at the same time, there are some very human things we need to do that maybe shouldn't just be done on technology. So I believe in frontier tech. I believe in exploring the frontiers of technology, but also our humanity. And that can mean many things in the future. Today, starting with crypto, it's going to merge with much of the world, including other frontier technologies like AI. So the vision's broader, but there's also, I think the world's going to move to crypto.
I just got to say, this has been one of the most philosophical conversations I think we've ever had on Decentralounge, and I am here for it and I'm loving it. I feel like you and I could go geek out somewhere pretty hard. And having lived through all those things, you struck me as younger Devin, and I think you were spot on with the analogy of the internet and sort of infrastructure and the app layer and everything else. And it's when you lay it all out like that, it's very easy to see. So, knowing that we're coming up close to the end of our conversation, I mean, how do people get in touch with you? Obviously, I admittedly have not read any of your Substack. I will be reading some of your Substack now.
Good stuff. It's good stuff.
It's really exciting.
I am curious to read the Devin Baker Substack. It's a good one.
That's great. I appreciate it. So, I'm on Twitter at DevBakes, and you can check out Comma at comma.org, and there you'll find writing kind of segregated in two spaces. You have the fund, Comma Partners, specific thoughts on crypto, but on the other side of the world of Comma is the exploration of the human side, and Comma sits at the middle.
Awesome. And I take it that that's some sort of reference even in itself why you chose the name Comma.
There you go. I always love when people ask where does the name come from. The first thing I'll ask them is like, well, what do you think of when you hear the word or see a comma kind of on the page? And yeah, but even before I started the fund, I knew that whatever I was going to do next was going to be called Comma. I just, at the time, this was probably in 2022 or 3. I just wasn't sure what it was yet. So I knew the name was there. And then the rest sort of filled in.
Well, it's deserving of the name, that's for sure.
Good. Well, I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, Devin, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. This has been an enlightening conversation. Really looking forward to digging into your writing and actually seeing more with what you're doing in the future. Hope we run into each other. For those of you who are either listening on Apple or Spotify, or if you're tuning in and watching the video today, thank you for listening or watching this episode of Decentralounge. We'll be sure to include all of those links so you can reach out to Devin yourself, continue the conversation with him directly. And outside of that, we'll see you next time on the next episode of Decentralounge. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, guys.